In today's episode, we're going to be talking about healing, the effects of healing on ourselves, the effects of healing on those around us, and some of the more challenging aspects that come up when we're doing our healing, and especially when we are healing mother wounds, father wounds. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hi and welcome back to Outlaw Door. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Claire Attio. For those that are returning subscribers, thank you. If you've not yet hit that subscribe link, then do so, and the notification bell, so that you will be notified every time there's a new video uploaded. So healing, the healing journey. Now, the first thing I want to say is when we're doing healing, we often go into it thinking that there is something broken within us, there is something wrong that needs to be fixed. We are perfect just as we are. The healing journey is about releasing the things that no longer serve us, that are stopping us and blocking us from expanding into an even greater, better version of ourselves. And I say better tongue-in-cheek because you are perfect as you are. And it's really important to take that on board, because it's very easy to be down on ourselves, to be negative with ourselves, and then what we actually do is we start a cycle of self-deprivation. So I wanted to get that out of the way first of all. Now, the challenges that come up when we're doing healing is, one, we don't like to take ourselves to places where we know are going to hurt. It's a natural instinct. That hurts, stay away from that. The other, which is very prevalent when we're doing mother wounds and father wounds, and again, please don't take that your mother or your father are terrible people. It's not about them, it's about you. It's about the way you perceive the things that were said. The things that were said could have been very innocent, but if you're a sensitive soul, you could have taken the meaning, the perception of what was said in a very negative way, when actually it was meant to be positive. It was meant to be encouraging, but because of maybe the tone that was used, or the words that were used, or what was going on at the time within you, or what was going on at the time environmentally, with other aspects, with other people, siblings perhaps, the way you interpreted it, perceived it, left a negative imprint on you. And that's what we want to heal. It's not that the people involved are negative, it's the imprints that were left with us that have created a negative belief, a negative value, a negative thought pattern or program that needs to go, that we just don't need, that is just holding us back and keeping us stopped and blocked. And I say that because a few weeks ago I did a video where it was an energy check-in, and I was actually talking about, I think it was the full moon actually, go back, it was the last energy check-in anyway, and I was saying how we have spent so much time healing with the divine feminine, and the new energies coming in are the divine masculine, and taking that on board. Yesterday I did a healing on the father line, the father wounds. And my relationship with my father was, my relation has been one of those bittersweet pills, because My father was a really good man. My mother's a really good woman. I was super fortunate, and I know not everybody can actually say that. I was super fortunate, and I always have gratitude for that. But there are still wounds there, and that's one of the challenges that we have, because it's that acknowledging that there's wounds there, and if there's wounds there, we automatically start to flip the switch and think that there are issues there. There was something wrong with them. Yeah, most families have a level of dysfunction. Unfortunately, society has been built, traditional family upbringing has breeded codependency, which has led to dysfunction, and that is what we're trying to change. We want to be independent souls so that we can actually be co-creative rather than codependent with others. And I want to get that across as well, because a lot of people is like independent, and that is being taken to the extreme. Everything is in balance. We want to be independent sovereign souls that we then have the confidence to co-create with others. It's not about being an island, completely isolated. We need very often to isolate ourselves while we're going through the process of working towards that independence and healing through the aspects that keep us in codependent, that keep us having negative experiences, patterns, behaviors, beliefs. But it's not about being so independent that you become an island and you don't want anybody else in your life. This is about becoming so independent, so confident in yourself that you quite happily pursue engagements with others so that you can co-create with those others. So that's another aspect to bring in. But as I said, yesterday I was doing the father wound healing, and it was interesting because I was taken back to a time when I was about 10 and we were on holiday in Mallorca. And it's one of those things, because the one thing, as I said, it's bittersweet because I always put my father on a pedestal because he was such a good man. And so I, in my innocence, believed all men were like that. Only to learn that actually that wasn't true. Not all men are honest, not all men are noble, not all men are just. And so that was a big path, a big part of my learning curve that I had to go down to learn that discernment, because I'd been brought up in that safety of my father's loving container, as it were. Unfortunately, he didn't actually teach me. He didn't have the skills to teach me that all men weren't like that. All he actually did is he went into that very masculine role of don't do this and don't do that and don't do this, and he wanted to lock us up rather than actually teach us what was needed to be safe and to have the discernment when we are engaging with that masculine role, when we're engaging with other masculines as a feminine, and some of the things to look out for. He didn't have the capacity to teach that. He just wanted to lock myself and my sister up. And he you know, his thing was get them married off and then it's somebody else's responsibility. Because he didn't have the tools in his toolbox. It wasn't because he was a bad person. And this is what we need to remember when we're healing these wounds, whatever those wounds are. It's not because they were bad people. There will be situations where there is a lot of negativity and there is a lot of hurt people. I did actually go through that when I was doing mother wounds. But keep in mind, it is that hurt people, and very often the hurts arise because those parental figures didn't have the tools in their toolbox. They are either hurting so much themselves, they are projecting that, or they don't have the tools in their toolbox. We live a very privileged life. Everybody that from my age group that has decided to go on to this path, and generations behind, have been gifted from those that weren't able to provide. Let's not get that wrong. Have been gifted the privilege to be able to undertake this healing, to learn, to grow, to develop, to evolve. What I was given yesterday, and I will get to it in a minute, what I was given yesterday was a scene. My mind's eye took me back to a scene when I was about 10 and we were on holiday in Mallorca. And my brother had kicked off. Now, there are four of us, so I've got 3 siblings. And unfortunately, we have the third child, and it's that typical third child syndrome. When you look at it from a psychological point of view, he was kicking off because there were 3 in 3 years, so there was very little. You can imagine the time that was allowed just for him. But he was always he was dubbed the black sheep, and so being dubbed that, he then started playing into that, and that became his role. And he actually kicked off one evening whilst we were on holiday, and Mum went into her whole drama mode over it, and Dad was in his, I've worked bloody hard for the last eckies months to save up for this holiday, and now I'm having to deal with all this ish. And so he kind of got riled up as well. And I, being the peacemaker, because that was my role, being the peacemaker and being the empath and moulding myself to the environment and saying the things that I need to say to kind of calm everything down, I actually said something which sent my father off on one, because he took it in that moment of heightened emotions. Because as an adult, I can now see now he was probably sat there going, I've worked all year to save for this holiday, and now look at the shambles of what's happening on it. Can we not just have 2 weeks of peace and quiet and get on? And I can see that as an adult, I've kind of done that. As a mother, I have done that. In those moments, said something that triggered him, and he then turned on me. And for some unknown reason, in that moment, something kicked off in me, and I can remember thinking, I was only 10, and I can remember thinking, I've had enough of this. I'm leaving. And it was about 10 o'clock at night, so it was getting dark, and I just stormed off, and I thought, that's it, I'm leaving, and I'm in a foreign country, I don't speak the language, and I just wander off, and I just stomp off in a very, almost a stroppy teenager way. That's absolutely fine. I actually made my way back to the villa. I've obviously caused even more drama because they were looking for me when I eventually come back, and they were worried for me. But as far as I'm concerned, they should have been. As I said, I was a stroppy teenager at that in those moments, even though I was 10, because in my mind, they shouldn't have kicked off in the first place. I wanted to wander off and be on my own and kind of lick my wounds, as it were. What came from that, though, and having that incident replay in my mind, and then be reminded that that's why I made the decision when if I was lucky enough to have a family, or when I had children, that I would always apologise, was obviously there was the relief, and then there was a telling off for running off, and I sucked that up. that was warranted. But what transpired is I was being asked to apologize for what I said to my father that triggered him, and I would not apologize initially, because what I'd said wasn't wrong. Now that turned into yet another family argument, as it does, especially when you've got children. And eventually I was made to apologise, and I was very indignant, and that indignation had stayed with me. But what had transpired, and what I hadn't realised until yesterday, was I learnt from that one incident to subdue my indignation, to dampen down the right to voice my opinion in those given paradigms. Now, I'm not saying I subdued my right to voice my opinion, because if anybody knows me, they go, really, Claire? Because I am a confident person, and I am confident about speaking about my beliefs. But in those given paradigms, it meant, in those dynamics, and I realised that from that one incident, there were many, many, many incidents that followed as an adult where I didn't speak up for myself in family dynamics, in relationship dynamics. And I did the healing that was needed. I did the releasing that was needed, which was absolutely beautiful. And then last night, when I was in bed and I was doing my gratitude and I was doing my prayers, my father came to me and he apologized. And I was, but thank you. First of all, thank you. It was absolutely lovely to get that, because I'd never had an apology from him at all throughout my adult life, which is throughout our life at all. He was of that generation that he didn't feel he needed to apologize to his children, and that was part of his upbringing. So one, that was absolutely magical, and that was beautiful to get that. But then he started to explain himself, and it was in those moments, whilst we were connecting energetically, and I was having this conversation with him, because for me, a lot of it is in the mind's eye. For me, I am Claire visual and Claire audio in those moments. And so in that conversation, I actually just stopped him and said, you don't need to. There is no need to explain yourself. And I think that's really important, because I think when you translate that and you bring it back to the physical life now, is very often as parents, it's terribly difficult for a lot of people to admit they effed up, for want of a better word, to admit they got it wrong, to admit, especially for fathers, because fathers, and I know for him it was, he wanted to be that protector. He wanted to be the all-knowing, all-seeing, all-being. That is what he wanted to be for us, especially the girls in the family. And so that is where a lot of his inability to apologize came from, because if he apologized, then he would have to admit that he didn't have all the answers. And as parents, when you have little ones looking up to you, putting you on a pedestal, it's very difficult to actually say you don't have all the answers. For a lot of people, they don't have the confidence to do that. Because of that one situation, yes, okay, there were negative aspects of which I learned yesterday that had proceeded into my adult life, that needed healing and releasing and just letting it go. But he also gifted me, and I think this is what we need to, this is all about balance. When we're healing, let's keep that balance, because he also gifted me, and this is what I reminded him last night, he gifted me the ability, he gifted me the insight that when I had my daughter, I was adamant, I was absolutely tunnel visioned in the knowledge that I wanted to be able to apologize when I got it wrong, and I wanted to be able to say, yeah, I am your mum, and yes, I am here, and I am your security, and I am this container for you, but I'm not always going to get it right because you don't come with a rule book. And that was one of our phrases when Georgina was little, was, I'm sorry, Georgina, you didn't come with a manual. And we used to say it in jest, but it actually helped for her to understand that there are times that I don't have all the answers, and there are times that I will F up. There are times when I will get it wrong. There will be times when I just didn't have the answers, or I didn't have the tools in my own toolbox to give her what she needed. And on those occasions when I did get it wrong, then I would apologize. And he gifted me that. So yes, there were negative aspects that came from that one given situation, but there was also a blessing in there. And I think that's what we need to take hold of. That's what we need to remember, especially when we're just starting out on our healing journey. If you're just starting out, don't, as I did, hands up, my poor mother, because obviously I started with the mother wounds. Don't go into and even if you don't actually say it, energetically they can feel it when you're going through that process, when you're pulling up those boxes and you're opening those Pandora boxes to see what's in there and see what you want to keep and what you want to get rid of, and what functions and what doesn't function, and what needs healing and what doesn't need healing, and what was an issue for you. Because there's certain things that my mother did that were a massive issue for me, but they have absolutely no issue to my siblings. And this is what we need to remember. It's not about the person, it's about our perception of is what we're healing. So when we're talking about mother wounds, we're not going, you did this and you did that and you did the other. It's about, okay, how did I perceive that? How did that affect me? What did I build as a belief because of that, because of my perceptions, because of the way that I took that in, and because of how I interpreted what I heard, what I saw, what I felt. Let's not forget, as we're wrapping this up, let's not forget that memories are subjective. And the more we visit them, the more they change, we add to them. And so it can be that a memory that we have, that we've got, because maybe we've visited it because it hurt so many times. And that's why it's always, that's another reason why it's really good to do the healing, because if we do have a memory that hurts, let's just get rid of it. We don't actually need that memory. There is a million more memories, positive memories, that we can keep, that we can hold on to. So if we do have negative memories, let's just go in, do the work, heal them, get rid of them. They're not needed. There will be a gem, there will be a lesson, there will be something in there. As I said, my gem from that negative experience, that negative memory, that in that given situation, was that I was able to, and really forceful with, owning up to my ish with my daughter. There will always be a gem in there. Go in, do the healing, grab the gem, get out, release it, let it go, give it back to ether with love, to be transmuted from love to love. Back it goes. We don't need to make this traumatic. There will be aspects that are challenging and traumatic, and there will be aspects where those of you have gone through serious trauma. I would actually advise you to, in those instances, get yourself a therapist that is not going to draw out. They're only going to pull it out and draw it out for as long as needed to get all of that to the surface, so it can be looked at, it can be sieved through, the gems can be taken, and the rest can be thrown away. I hope this has helped. If you've liked the video, then press that like button. If you've not yet subscribed, please subscribe. And I shall see you on the next one. Take care. Bye bye.